All right, guys, this is the first show. Um, we did a little show before. I was telling him on that show with my brother just now that we were waiting, and well, since we were waiting, we might as well do a little show before, and we'll pick up on that. But this is my first guest, Philip Biermann. Is that right?
Yep.
Philip Biermann. Biermann, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're from Mason City.
Yep. I'm from Mason City. I own the Iowa Cell Phones and Repair Shop here in town. I've actually owned that for over 13 years. We're going on 14, I think. I got to change my sign though, but I think it says 12 or something. But I've been doing cell phone repair kind of in this area as like the main cell phone guy for 21 years, like almost before the industry became a thing.
So,
And so, yeah,
is that the same thing as laptops and stuff? Is it
we do
all
laptops and
okay?
we'll do video game systems and all these like
Yeah.
iPads and so forth. But I specialize like cell phones, like ever since the first flip phone was the first one, the
Okay.
Motorola StarTAC or some of
Yeah.
those old candy bar Nokias. That was my first phones I
Yeah.
worked on and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah. I didn't have a phone until I almost like hated them because I couldn't afford them, but also people were just too connected to them like right away.
yeah,
And that was never me. I never really wanted to be connected to everybody. Um, so I fought the idea every time I got a phone. It was just like the coolest phone I ever had is it looked like a little egg and it flipped.
I remember. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then at the bottom screen, this was very unique back in the time. At the bottom screen, it would give you ESPN highlights.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't have internet. You couldn't search the web, but it would give you.
I want to say
You
it
can
was a
put
Kia
chan.
Sarah.
It might have
There's
been,
so many
yeah,
different ones.
yeah.
Those.
It had you can ask for what channel you wanted, and it would give you like three or four different channels, and ESPN, National Geographic, Fox News, whatever, and they would just give up the hype. I only use ESPN. I had that phone forever, and I would drop it all the time. It was just like a little grenade type thing,
Yeah.
and I loved it. And then when that finally broke, it was like 3 or 4 years after I bought it. That's really the only cell phone that I remember was that first one that I
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
I loved it so much. But yeah, what I was asking about that is because I bought this laptop here that
Mhm.
so when I started this podcast, I just got the idea. I just told my wife about a month ago, or maybe a couple months ago, and she was kind of worried about the expenses and all that. And I was like, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need that, but it's gonna make money. Don't worry about
Mhm.
it. We're gonna sell a bunch of stuff, and she wasn't really having it. So she wanted us to use this laptop that we already had, and I came in here, and it's I don't know if you can see it, but it might be behind you. But we
Oh yeah.
tried to use that laptop, and it won't work. And I was like, I can't use this. So what my brother was telling me, because he's from Oregon, he knows all kind of about like they call it Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so he's like it's explaining that the silicone has a half life. Have you
Mhm.
heard about that?
Yeah.
And
I've
that's
heard.
so I mean, is that true? Like is that what makes computers and laptops or technology not? Because we couldn't get that thing. Like you'd click on it and it was taking so slow. It's like we can't.
Yeah, some of it's processing power and stuff like, and a lot of the new programs
Mhm.
require like a lot faster processors. And so like I've run into that because I play in a band and I played for many years, but we do a lot of light programming and production programming on computers, and it's crazy how fast that technology gets outdated.
Yeah,
Like we'll sit there and be like, I feel like I just loaded and programmed all this stuff, and this computer now can't handle the update or the new
yeah.
version of the program, and when he's constantly updating. But
I turned the heater on, but I think I turned it on too high, so I don't get it too hot.
oh no, you're good.
Uh, so I do apologize to everybody watching, but I don't want to be
Which is crazy because
80
it's
degrees
been
in here.
it's that time of year where it's like, do I turn the air on? Do I turn the heat on?
Yeah.
Do I not have to turn it on?
So we bought acreage a few years ago, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more. We got, I wouldn't say that we got ran out of town, but we lived in Mason for like 10 years, and in our alley we lived up there by North Federal, you know where the Casey's is at.
Yes.
Okay, so in our alley, I came home one time from church, and I was very excited because we were doing chickens and everything, and I had bought shed at a garage sale, a little tiny backyard homemade shed. And I bought it, and that's what we were going to use to do our chicken coop. But I didn't tell my wife about it, so I was like all into surprises and stuff like that. So we get home from church. I had my buddy put it in the backyard for us while we were gone, and then when we came home, there was the garage. Well, she had to go do something right away, so she couldn't see it right away. And I was like, "Well, just leave the kids here. That way, you can run your errands, and you don't have to be with the kids and everything. And I can show the kids the new shed in our backyard, the new chicken coop." So we all go in the backyard, and as I'm showing them the shed, I hear some arguing in the alley, and it's more than arguing; it's like fighting. And as myself, I kind of try to be like a peacemaker. I'm not really, I don't really want to see fights happen, especially in my neighborhood, my backyard. So I go back there, seeing if I can de-escalate the situation. And one of the guys pulls out a gun and starts shooting at the person.
Whoa.
And he took off, but had he returned fire, that would have been in the same direction as my kids. And
Yikes.
as I'm standing in front of the guy who was shooting, he was probably maybe 20 feet, like about from here to that window right there, shooting at that guy. And I'm trying to, I'm just trying to get him to stop and yell at him, but he's just, I don't know what was going on. I don't know anything about that story. I let the police know, and they came in and took questions and everything. And I was like, thanks for coming out and helping and all that. But it was like 3 months later. But anyways, at that point, I was like, we got to go. We have to go.
Yeah, that's nuts.
We have to go. At that point, it was like 2 or 3 months later. I saw the person who was shooting. I was like, that's him. He's right here. So I called the police station. I was like, that's the guy. He's right here. I know what house he went into. I can give you. At the time, I couldn't. I wasn't focused on descriptions or anything like that. I was just like so shocked by the whole situation. But now that I'm steady, I calm, I can get details and everything. They were not interested in the details. They were like, "We know who he is. We know who you're talking about." And I don't know if they made an arrest. I didn't ask later on if they made an arrest, but it was just like shocking to me that that took place in my backyard. My kids are right there, and they weren't really interested in getting
Yeah.
in maybe like I said, I don't want to make it sound that bad, but
So,
maybe
I mean,
they
that's pretty bold. It's not every day
well,
someone doesn't
maybe
walk out
right,
to,
right, and
shoot
maybe
you.
they arrested him. Maybe they were planning a sting, and they got maybe 4 or 5. I don't know what happened in that situation, but I know that whatever it was, how they responded to me wasn't enough to make me feel safe about what they were doing.
Oh, exactly.
And I didn't want to complain too much about. We had already looking at another place, so we got another place. And the reason why I was talking about my place in North Springs now, we have a fireplace, and we heat it with wood all winter long. But now it's too hot. It's too warm to have a fireplace. Will be too hot in our house, so we let the heat on, and so we're going to be spending more money now with our heater than we did during the winter. So it's like, do you turn the heat on? Do you not
Yeah.
turn? So
Right.
that's what I
Right.
was talking about that
Oh,
before.
yeah.
So that's a little bit about me. I didn't share too much of that with you guys before on the show, but so you, um, Philip Biermann, the main reason why I started following you
Yep.
is with this case with Jodi. How do you pronounce the last name?
Huisentruit, I
Jodi
believe.
Huisentruit. When I first moved to Mason City, people were telling me about this story of a newscaster. Her name was Jodi Huisentruit here at the local station here in Mason City, and I didn't catch too much. I didn't know too much about it. The story that I heard when I first heard it was that there was a lady. She got abducted from her apartment, and nobody's seen her since. When then it's like, well, where did she go? Was she murdered? Was she kidnapped? Is she still alive? Is she somewhere here? Is her body somewhere here in Mason City? Is she gone? Is she destroyed? What's going on with that investigation? What's the closure on that? Is it an open case? Is it a closed case? Is it nobody ever? So people were telling me on the street. I had like two different versions. On the street, is where all the rumors generate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a monster ate her. She ran away. She's still alive. Anything, anything that people want to make up, that's a rumor.
Yep.
One of them was that she was investigating the police.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing a report on the police, and they decided to not do it. They decided to take her out so that the report wouldn't be ran. Now that's a street rumor. I'm not claiming that. I'm just saying that's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
When I talked about it with the people at the church who were, not street people, not given
Yeah.
into rumors and stuff, they said, I never heard anything. She was abducted. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
took her. We don't know what happened to her. I don't know about anything. So, and then I see, if every once in a while you'll see these huge billboards,
Mm-hmm.
find where's Judy? Are you
Mm-hmm.
responsible for those billboards?
No, no, that's actually Find Jodi, the organization.
There's an
Uh,
entire organization behind
yep,
it.
yep,
Okay. And so this is like a national situation. Like, it was in
yeah.
the New York Post the other day. I
Mm-hmm.
saw that.
It's one of the biggest, cold cases on things, and I actually sometimes get surprised, like, um, how many people actually know about it.
Mhm.
Because, like, one prime example is I can't count how many people tag me in, "Hey, you got to get Adventures with Purpose out there to
Mhm.
dive on this and
Yeah.
dive on whatever." And I love those. I've been watching those guys' YouTube for like ever, but like, uh,
What's their name?
Adventures with Purpose. It's
Adventures with
a
Purpose.
YouTube, TikTok, all that. They come into places, they'll scan it with their special sonar, and they're like experts with sonar and just finding cars and solving either cold cases or solving mysteries of missing people. And I sent a email out there. I'm like, I don't know, they're probably getting. I mean, they were just over here in Hampton, and that's actually like blew me away. That as soon as
Mhm.
I heard they were coming for that, I was like, they're gonna find him. I've seen their guys' work. They're gonna find him, and lo and behold, they did.
Who did they find?
Ethan Kazmerzak,
Okay.
I pronounce however you pronounce his last name. Um, yeah, he was missing, and there was questions behind if he was abducted and all
Okay.
these different things, and ended up, they went to a pond or a lake or something that had been scanned.
Hmm.
But it's just when you're dealing with lakes and stuff like that, you could probably go to there, have divers go in the whole, and I've learned this firsthand,
Yeah.
and then they come out like, I have no trace of anything in
Hmm.
there, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, you could have a different scan or a different team, and boom, they'll find crazy stuff. And
Well,
so,
the lakes are in here are huge.
no,
So
yeah.
how can you scan a lake and not and miss something?
Well, so like a lot of it is in our area. There's like silt, mud, clay, all this stuff at the bottom,
Okay.
and like so in one of the places that I was looking, I actually got bold because so I had a diver friend there, but he didn't have gear, and he's like, "Hey, I need someone who's tall," and I'm 6'4", so I
Okay.
was like, "I'm tall. I would never jump in any lake like this. I don't like dealing with the snapping turtles and
Yeah.
whatever else, any of that stuff." But like the boldness came over me, and I was like, "All right, I'm going. I'll go in. I'll make the sacrifice.
Hmm.
Pull past my fears and just go in." And as soon as I stepped in, it was like the silt, even as 6'4", it was up to my thigh.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was like, what is this? I've never stepped in anything like
Yeah.
this. And some of these places it has that. And then if the wind shifts or you get bad storms, or some of these are drainage ponds for fields, they'll fill up with water because it's all draining from these fields,
From the silt and from
from the
okay.
silt and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, like when I'm in the water, my diver buddy would always just like go out there and be like, what you're sitting in, right, or whatever. I'm like, what? He's like, these come in from all the fields and all that. I'm like, oh, so this is probably manure, this is chemicals from whatever they spray on
Yeah.
everything, this is whatever I'm marinating in it, this is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, it's those guys come in with good scans. It allows them to pinpoint an exact area, and some of those scans. And I actually just learned this, and this is where I wanted to go over that last property that pond I was looking at with. They have
Mhm.
drones now that can actually fly over
Yeah.
and do special scans where they can actually see better than see anything that's buried in the mud and silt and stuff like that, versus feeling around in there and hoping you get lucky or whatever. and
Mhm.
and uh and that stuff changes fast, because even for instance with that pond one that I did, it was like day one sunny, the water levels were low, and it was like perfect for us to be able to see, the car that was in there. But by day two, all of a sudden we had 40 or 50-mile-an-hour winds. It was
Mhm.
like rainy and gross.
Yeah.
And as soon as I went to the same spot where the car was, because we had thrown a magnet on it,
Uh-huh.
it was buried. Like our magnet was
And
under
just in
under
just
whatever.
two in
And
just one
so
day.
yeah, and so like I was standing on it the first day, and then by day two, I couldn't find it with my feet. I knew it was underneath me, and
No
so I
way.
tried to
Yeah.
dig my feet down. I'm like, it's almost got a foot of stuff on top of where it was.
Is that
Like,
underwater, like
yeah, it
completely
was
on?
under. Yeah, it was under.
So
It was all
so are
stuff
you
underwater. So
like how deep underwater was that? Like
so this one, it was surprising because like I've always heard from watching Ventures with Purpose, you have cars can be hidden in it needs at least like 15 feet of water or whatever to
mhm.
to hide
Yeah.
a water from people. But this actually felt lower than that. It felt like it could be 12 feet or 12
So you're
whatever.
completely
But I don't know if you technically count however deep the silt and whatever, then maybe it could be
okay.
17 feet or
Yeah.
something. But like where the car was, I was able to, on that day with the water level so low, I could stand on the bottom of it and the water would still be up. So I'm 6'4", so I
Okay.
mean 6 foot above where the bottom of the car was, but I mean it was submerged. Like all you could see was the four tires sticking out, and then
So
bits of the bottom of the car.
so you could stand on it and have your head above water
Yeah,
a
just a
little.
touch of it
Okay.
on there, and that's why
Okay.
he wanted someone tall, because he's
Yeah.
like, all right, we were trying to rig it up with some tow ropes and stuff like that, but it
Okay.
was like feeling around, like where.
And what was the purpose of that? Like you went there. Why did you go there to begin with?
So that one, so that was the second actually, because like some people watch my videos, and I know it's confusing because in my case, the only reason I actually started doing videos
Mhm.
was just so people could see what I'm running into, what I'm facing,
Yeah.
because I am, and I'm like, on paper, I'm not an investigator. Like
Okay.
I'm not a legal private investigator. I'm
Mhm.
actually working on it when I can find a second of time.
Yeah.
But at one point I wanted to be a bounty hunter. I was a big Dog
Oh,
the
okay.
Bounty Hunter
Yeah.
fan. Like I'm even in the fan club to
Yeah.
this day. Got his autographs at my
Does
house
he
and
still
everything.
do it?
He does, but it's more like he'll come in for like people searches. Like when he did that.
Okay.
Gosh, what was that? Patino girl that was lost or whatever, and they were looking
Mhm.
for her killer that was her boyfriend or
Yeah.
whatever. He came in, and I was just like, oh, dude, if it's gonna be someone to
Dog the
find him,
bounty
like.
hunter. Yeah.
And so like I love that stuff. So that's where like my
So you
passion in
wanted to be a
watching that
bounty.
stuff.
You want to be
I
a
wanted to,
bounty.
dude. I was
Okay.
so close to where I was like shifting from phone repairs to bounty hunting or whatever. Like, but yeah. And so I mean, so like my background on all of it is I'm technically just a civilian content creator, journalist, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it, as if you're going to technically give it a name. And so I just dove into that because I'm like, this case has so many twists and turns, so much insanity that like I have to have a video so people can see it. Because like if you were just tell someone or post them on
Yeah.
Facebook, holy cow, I just ran into this, they're going to
You
be like,
you grew up in Mason.
yeah, I grew up in. I actually. What's crazy is I moved here in 1995, I believe,
Okay.
and I actually grew up in like Prior Lake, Minnesota. This is my first couple years, 8 years of life. Moved to North Carolina, and then the reason my family moved here is my dad was in charge of the Serta mattress plant, and that's why
Oh,
Serta
okay.
actually came to
Okay.
Clear Lake,
Yeah.
and so that brought us here. But like when I was 8, because we only lived in North Carolina for not even a year almost, but when we moved here, I remember the first thing seeing is that giant
Okay.
missing persons van with Jodi Huisentruit and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and I remember that like at night or anytime you'd see white vans, you're
Oh
always
yeah.
just like, holy cow, I've seen that on the news, and
Yeah.
like it just gives you chills. And so that was my first like experience and with knowing about it and all that. But like um but yeah, and obviously I've been in either Mason or Clear Lake for since then and
Yeah.
stuff.
So
So
when did you first start like I'm gonna be part of this?
yeah, I mean, so over all the years, you always hear rumors, theories, all these different things. And so it was one night last November. So
Mhm.
like I haven't been on it
Okay.
very long, and
Okay.
that's why like I sit here and I'm like, how is a civilian like me
Yeah.
within 4 or 5 months
Mhm.
get to where I am, and they have these top leading guys for the
Yeah.
past 30 years, and they're just going in circles or
Do
quit,
you?
and
I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of skepticism on that,
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
if that's okay with
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So, do you really think that um, you being on it since last November,
Mhm.
now it's April, so it's been like 6 months, 5 months, that you have gotten closer and more than what? So, I'm not gonna say so called, with authorities who have
Mhm.
actually been on it for
Mhm.
decades. You really think that you're getting closer than what
Uh,
authorities are?
I after my conversation this morning or last night too, I can guarantee that
Hmm.
with the information that I just got,
Okay.
the things. I mean that's the thing with the whole thing is just it's I don't know. There's so many things going in it, because there's people with multiple different crime ring things that just are colliding into each other, and people guilty of different things all hitting each other, and so that's creating these distortions and these theories and all this just messed up stuff that's halting things.
Yeah.
And some people want to cover up their part of this, these people want to cover up their part of this, and then they cross paths, and so then it's just
You don't
working
think it's
together. And
like rumor based though? Like,
so
so
so that's
let's make a case scenario. Let's say Dollar General is right here. We're looking at Dollar General. So Dollar General, they just moved in the street a couple years ago, which they did, and we're gonna say that the person who owns that is actually a drug lord and is
Mhm,
planting their drugs in Mason.
mhm.
And now that story takes off, and now, oh, they're also, didn't you hear that they're also affiliated with Quick Start, and that's why you see Dollar Generals
Mhm.
and Quick Start. And now, I just made that up just now.
Oh yeah.
You don't think that that's what's going on? Is that you're just hearing a
Well,
bunch of rumors about?
and that's actually like, so going back to when I first started in November, it actually spiked off of I was binge watching one of the craziest Netflix crime documentaries I've ever seen, and it was something where someone hid their crime for like, and it was similar 30 some years or
Mm-hmm.
40 years or something, and they used psychological games to make sure that like they were hidden under the radar the entire time. And it wasn't till some like web sleuth chick came in and literally was like, we need to start looking into the people that people aren't thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
and then we might find answers. And so I was in one of those where I'm like, I have to see this through. I know it's 3 in the morning, but
Yeah.
I gotta work at whatever, but I gotta see it through. So 3 in the morning gets over. I'm stunned by seeing like it ended up being the one guy that no one expected, and they had it in the backyard, and it was there, right under their noses the whole time. And I just sat there, and I don't know what it was, but something sat there, and it's like, what if the Jodi Huisentruit case has something like this? What if it's someone flying under the radar that no one is thinking? It's right under your nose, and no one's called it out or checked into it. And so I immediately, literally that night, I didn't sleep. I just was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go right into this. I'm going to
Yeah.
Iowa courts. I'm gonna start looking up traffic citations of all these people,
Mm-hmm.
that were alibis or whatever else. And as soon as I dove into that, it was like, boom, I hit gold. And I was like, how did I do this right away? This is day one. Like,
Yeah.
at like, and I you know I do have ADHD, so one of the things that comes with ADHD is
Mm-hmm.
you get the ADHD hyperfocus, and
Okay.
and uh, and it's always been that way. Like when I have my band projects when I was young, it was all in, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, or my shop was a dream, and then I was just all in. And then with this Jody thing, it's like that night sparked me, and my mind would not let it go. Like even if someone just kind of like brushed my shoulder and was
Mm-hmm.
just like, "Oh yeah, you working on the Jody thing?" And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's just like my brain's all in, like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
like there's some crazy stuff on this." But it wasn't till too the I mean the thing that motivates me is I was raised, I'm a Christian
Hmm.
myself and everything. And
Hmm.
so, I was raised very right, and my heart goes out to a lot of people. And so I like to help people, which
Yeah.
is also why I started my repair business. It
Hmm.
was actually more, I loved helping people in
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved with repairing things.
That's what
And
I found out to be the most rewarding about tree removal is meeting the people and them being thankful and how appreciative they are of the work that that was accomplished. Just seeing the smile on the customer's face when we were gone, and
Mhm.
um, th- th- that's worth more than any of the money that was paid. Just,
Right.
I mean, it's so that's what's addicting is just seeing, and I miss that now because I'm not on the job site and the guys finish the job and they leave,
Mhm.
and it's like I don't get to see the customers how happy they are,
Yeah.
when they see as the process takes place. I come in afterwards and I get the bill, and they're not so. I give them the bill, and they're not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
You
not
can
so
imagine
happy to
that.
see me when I come. But
Right.
no, they still are very appreciative, and you're right. Being able to provide a service that somebody appreciates, that feeling is just so overwhelming and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and to me, like
enjoying.
sometimes it's
Yeah,
bigger than even the payment on
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Like I can't count how many times like we've recovered data and someone is just crying, hold just they pull us into hugs, and like it's the stuff like that where then it's like, all right, now I'm getting choked up, or
yeah.
whatever. And or just cases that we've done where like people have brought in things, even law enforcement has brought things in for cases where it's just like, do you guys have the capability to do this? Oh yeah, it
Mm.
was easy. Like, whatever, easy for us, not for anyone else, but like just boom, to find answers. But I mean, then you do run into some of the sour sides of things
Yeah.
where, with us, phones become almost like a drug or an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that some of that sometimes gets into, some saltier things. And that's not as much of what I like about that
What
side
do
of
What do you
things.
mean
But
salt? What do you mean
well, it's
saltier?
salty when they just get like, you know, they have to have, well, like for us, obviously someone gets their phone fixed, they want it now, they
They
want it
want, yeah, yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, yeah.
And so like we'll sometimes get someone where they're like, hey, I'm from like 3 hours away, drove here, heard you guys are amazing, can you do this in 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or actually, this is a crazy one. I mean, I could almost make a reality TV show out of my shop because
yeah,
that's stories I could write books on.
yeah.
With when you're dealing with everyone in retail, you see some of the craziest stuff. So one of my favorite shows was this show called Hardcore Pawn,
Mm-hmm.
out of Detroit.
Yeah.
And we run into some of the exact same just crazy stuff where we almost needed security in there because like you get
What's
tantrums
yeah.
where people would throw tantrums, and I had a grown adult laying on the floor, and
Really?
they're like, I'm not leaving this place until you fix my phone tonight, and you're staying extra late.
No
And I'm
kidding.
like, I have to order a part, so you're literally going to spend the night. I can't just make a part out of nowhere or whatever.
As
Like,
much as I love people, there's people like that. It's like, where did you come from?
yeah,
What do
yeah,
you?
yeah.
What?
I'm really good at this
Yeah,
at bringing people down though, because
yeah,
I've had some people where
yeah,
they're like, I had one, it got serious where well, actually I have so many, where one where they were going to pull a gun on us, and they're just like, we want answers, we know you have the answers. We're like, unfortunately, the phone that your deceased family member had was brand new.
mm-hmm.
He did not have much information on it. If you can find an older device, we can find that information. And they did not want to take that answer. And then the next thing you know, it got lethal where they're threatening to bring a gun. And then it ended up, I can bring them down to where it was the lady crying, hugging me, thanking me, and then I'm giving her places to go for
Yeah,
grief counseling and
yeah,
stuff like that. And like, or like I've had one where it was a drug dealer that I think wanted his contacts on his phone, and this was during COVID. And he's like, my phone's soaking wet. You're going to get this fixed because I need to make some serious money on one phone call, and that contact's in this phone. I need it in within 1 hour. And I look at him, and it's still dripping water.
yeah,
And I'm like, there's absolutely nothing I can do in 1 hour. You're going to be lucky that I can even get anything
mm,
if if we
yeah.
can clean this up enough to get it to work. And he pulls out a gun and puts it right in my face or whatever. And then,
You had a gun in your face?
yeah, yeah. And,
Okay.
and during COVID, we were so busy with devices because
Mm,
people are at home that I remember I didn't even get time to change. I was there. We had piles of devices on tables,
yeah.
and I had to call in every old employee that I had and whoever to help us. So we were stressed. I mean, even the school came with totes full of iPads and stuff.
Oh,
And
so
like, and I was
business.
just like, I don't even know. I'm good at what I do, but
Hmm.
like this is so much work that like
Yeah.
I don't even know how we're gonna do this. And so like we were stressed out, and so then the dude pulling out a gun like that, all of us just kind of sat there like,
Wow.
you're not intimidating us right now.
Yeah.
Like we're so stressed out that that's not even scary,
Yeah,
like
you were so
or
stressed that
whatever.
not even
And
a
so I'm just
gun.
like, yeah, and
Yeah.
I just looked at him like, I'm just being real with you, man.
Yeah.
Like this is between you, science, and God,
Yeah.
but I can get your stuff for you. I'm very good, and I'll put in an extra effort because of your seriousness.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, you gotta give it time. Like, be
So
patient. Like,
you didn't call the police on him
I
or
didn't
get
even
him?
call the police on him.
Wow.
Like, no, no. It was just, and I mean,
That's one more lunatic running around because you didn't
oh
call the
man, yeah.
police.
I've had that, and then I had another one where it was a guy mad about he couldn't get the newest version of some app to get his old game data, and he pulled a knife on us and jumped our cases. And so I had my employees, like, they actually went in and tried to hide under desks and stuff, and I even had my accountant there. And then I just sat there and I'm like, well, I'm the boss.
Yeah.
I'm about to get stabbed. I'm
Yeah.
just going to take it
Yeah.
like a man. But I went out there and I got the guy down. I was able to bring him down to where he's like, hey, you want to go grab a beer later and handshake and whatever. And so, like, I mean, that's one of the things, like I have a good, I can read people really well, but I
What
can
what you're just saying,
de-escalate.
yeah, de-escalating. I made the comment earlier about lunatics and where do these people come from, but when you can de-escalate like you're talking about, you see how much pain people go through. You
Mm-hmm.
see that they're not that crazy lunatic as I was
Mm-hmm.
described. They're not that insane. They're an actual person that's being attacked by whatever demons or whatever
Mm-hmm.
history that they have. And if there's somebody out there who can
Mm-hmm.
kind of take that away, pull that curtain away, or,
Mm-hmm.
and see the actual person, you get an actual person. You begin
Yeah.
to care for that person. You can
Yep.
give them food. You can provide for them.
Oh yeah.
You don't harbor hatred for that person.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Well,
a very, yeah.
yeah, and that's so that kind of even leads into, like, with my investigation, one of the advantages I've gotten is because I've been the cell phone repair guy that people have brought things to for 21, over 21 years.
Mhm.
And so I know people trust me, and they know my heart on certain things.
Yeah.
And so I've had people come forward to me where they're like, all right, like I guess some of my posts went locally viral. Some people shared some things,
Hmm.
and next thing I know, I've got 2,000 friend requests and
Yeah.
500 messages. And in these messages from people, it's I'm getting a lot of cries for help, and that kind of stuff. But it's people that know me and trust me and say, hey, I can't give this information to law enforcement with their background, with who they are. It
Why
puts
can't you give information to law
so some
enforcement?
of them, they say like, hey, I'm a felon, I
Okay.
can't give this information, or I will be thrown back in, or
Okay.
they're a part of a dangerous organization and they don't want to come, get drilled for snitching or whatever else and put their family at
But
risk.
if they're that untrustworthy to law enforcement, wouldn't you also see them as like, you're an untrustworthy person? I don't trust your
Yeah,
information because it's gonna pollute what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
yeah. And so one of the things that I did learn early on in my investigation, because when I first actually started, I was like, what my goal is we're going to take every rumor, every
Hmm.
little conspiracy that people have said, and we're going to disprove and prove certain things. And so in the beginning, I was like, oh, this, with Jodi's case, it was,
Yeah.
this is going to be a cut and dry relationship thing. I think these rumors are, crap. There's no way there's corrupt cops, corrupt,
Yeah.
drug rings,
Yeah.
this giant, whatever thing. And every single angle that I started going down, or people coming to me, uh, it just kept becoming more plausible and more extreme, to where I sat there like, I hope it doesn't go down this leg. I
Yeah.
really hope it doesn't. And then it blows that out of the water and it's 10 times worse than I anticipated. And it's just like, holy cow. And some of the people that you would write off, like, I've had some people that come up to me and I immediately like, this guy is clearly a drug abuser that's could be even high now.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I'm just
Right.
wasting my time, but I'll hear him out. I'll
Right.
hear everybody out. And then all of a sudden he slips information that I'm just like, whoa,
Yeah.
excuse me, say that again. Like, what you just have is actually credible?
Yeah,
Like this.
it's a logical fallacy. That when I don't know what the actual, there's like 100 different logical fallacies if you ever take a logics class.
Mhm.
One of them was that the fallacy is this person's an alcoholic, therefore you can't trust him to know what he's talking
Mhm.
about with cell phones,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
this person's a former drug user, therefore you can't trust him to know how to work on a vehicle.
Mhm.
He's not, but that's a logical fallacy. So you're right, you can glean something uh, from a person who it does have a sketchier past. You don't want to
Mhm.
just throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
Right.
You do have to be able to have an open mind when it comes to those things, to be able to see what checks out and what doesn't check out. And
Mhm.
that's the main thing is, if you have information, if it's usable, you should be able to check it out. If
Mhm.
you can't check it out, then it's it's it's
Right.
not usable.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
need to be able to check it out for myself to verify. If I can't check it out, then I'm kind of wasting my time listening to you. So first,
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I want to, is the information that you give me, can I check it out for myself?
Right.
If I can't check it out for myself, it's useless.
Well, and one of the things that gets hard, and that's like, I'm openly admitting, like, because I have people I've seen, some of the hater comments that I get on different things where they're just like, oh, dude, he's incorrect on this, he's wrong about this, and I'm like, yes, I am probably wrong.
Mhm.
I'm just videoing and explaining what I'm running into, and I will be wrong because in this case, they actually have people that will give you like half truths or
Yeah.
half little things, or what I found with what it was starting to kind of turn out with one of the pond things was I get told, hey, this is, I want you to check here. There's going to be extreme stuff at this location. And I kind of sit there. I'm like, all right, we're sitting there throwing a camera in the water, looking, and we're like, I'm not seeing anything but dirt and rocks. This guy's nuts. And then we come across the car in there,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, he's plausible. We found actual
Yeah.
stuff in here,
Yeah.
and then later get to find out that they're messing with us, laughing about it because one of them stole a car back in the 90s or
Okay.
something, and
Yeah.
then drove a car in there, and then they're just telling me that it's related to Jodi just
So
to
just
watch me go on a
was
wild
that was
goose
that
chase.
last week? No. Was
So the
that the car
one,
you're talking about, or was
so
that a
so
different
yeah, so
event?
we so the first one was just
Well,
more off.
I want to start with
Yeah, yeah,
this because I kind of missed this a little bit.
yep.
What do you think happened to Jody?
Well, after the calls that I've gotten and the messages that I've gotten, I have a pretty I mean, yeah, in the next coming days, this could solve everything. And I got information top to bottom, uh, and it I mean, I'm still stunned by it
Yeah.
because it's so fresh or whatever. But like, and some of it stuns you because it's like I was wrong on this. Everyone was wrong on this. Everyone was pushed this way and
You don't
pushed
want to
this
say what
way.
that information is?
uh, I can't yet because of just the safety of what I'm going into coming up here. But what I can, I'm trying to figure out how to word it without, because like I don't
Well,
want to.
besides the information,
Yeah.
let's take that away from the
Okay.
table.
Okay.
Before you got that information,
Hmm.
what do you think happened to Jody?
Okay. So before
Okay.
before I had just all these different little theories, and you try and just go off of any little thing. And so one of the things I kept noticing is, with law enforcement, I was like, all right, either these guys are you know the worst crew
Mm,
ever
mm.
in history,
30 years,
or
30 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or we're dealing with something where they're using half truths to push their lies,
Mm,
and then they're covering up a lot, and and so like that created a new theory and rumor to kind of investigate and go down. And the problem was, it was just like I kept finding more and more bizarre things, and some of it is you have to watch out for. And because I'm not a trained, like I didn't go to school for
mm,
law enforcement or anything,
yeah.
but it's trying to not formulate ideas in your head and then like be like, all right, this has got to be what happened. I think in my head this, this went this direction, and you have to keep having an open mind of everything on stuff. But like one of the things that's still kind of spiraling me out is in originally, the van, for instance. I was like, all right, did they play off of the van? Did they play off of, I had someone that was a Globe Gazette paper boy come in and say on a comment, and he was like, hey, I was a paper boy. We picked up our papers around the key apartments from a white van. Excuse me. And he said it would sit with its parking lights on, and and then it would be 3:30 in the morning. They would pick it up, and then they'd disperse it among the East Park neighborhoods and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so immediately hearing that, I was like, okay, maybe this whole van thing was, something to get people thinking of something else.
You got to catch me up a little bit.
Yeah.
You have Jodi. She's in her apartment.
Oh yes, yeah. We'll go back to the cookie cutter. Yeah.
She's in her apartment, and she's found missing the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's all that people have. And then
Yep.
they go to her apartment. Do they see struggle? Is it torn apart? Is there
Yep.
blood? Is there
gun
casings? Is there a knife?
So it started with the night before the day before, she was at a golf tournament, and one of the fishy things with that whole golf tournament is, I think it's the Globe Gazette Online has gotten rid of any records from 1995 to 1997,
Mm-hmm.
which is crucial years related to this.
Okay.
And when confronted on that, they actually will say, oh, it's just because things weren't scanned with technology or something back then. But there's things behind that too that we've looked into. But anywho, trying to look at that to start with, because you're like, who was she hanging out with? Who was she around that prior day? That and in different areas that she could have been. So then, it goes into, according to what everyone knows online, is she had gone home. She had called her friend at a certain time that night, and that was like, she got the husband of one of her friends or whatever.
There's no cell phones back then.
No cell phones, just regular landline phones. And so she had called that person, and they had said, yeah, they had talked to her, and then she's like, oh, I don't need him to call me back. I'll just wait till the next day. And so she worked. She was a news anchor, so she worked the early shift. She had to wake up at 3 something in the morning to get to the station to do all her bits on KIMT.
Yeah.
So then and I don't have my notes in front of me, so I don't want to quote specifics.
Sure.
So basically, she got called and woken up by Amy Coons, who was her co-anchor at KIMT, and she was kind of her boss, I think. And so saying, "Hey, where you at?" It's
Amy Coons.
Amy Coons, yeah.
Is that a relation to the councilman who was here?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure on
so I don't want
family on that.
So.
But anyway, yeah. So then she had missed her alarm. She calls her to wake her up, and she said she sounded really groggy and everything, but was like, "Oh yeah, I'm on my way." And this apparently was a common thing. She was sometimes late and needed assistance to wake up because she liked to hang out with people, pretty late and stuff, and so. They never received, she never showed up for work. And then a couple hours later, they had to go on to, Amy Coons had to take her shift and go on live.
Okay.
And then they finally were like, okay, something's concerning because we're not getting return calls. We're not anything.
Yeah.
So then they called in a welfare check, and that's where they came to the scene, and they found a whole bunch of items next to, the red car, which everyone debates online or whatever. It's said that it's her car.
Okay, there was a red car in the parking lot.
Yep, red Miata
so let's
convertible.
Just stop right there.
Yep.
So they find nobody in the apartment.
Yep.
And what else do they? Is it?
They said signs of a struggle is what they put, and there was different items thrown out. There was a bent key, and then a bunch of personal items kind of thrown around.
Was the key to the door?
It
or
was a
just
key. It was a key
normal?
to the Miata. I mean, there was a few bizarre things behind that. Like, why is it just a single key? Like
Hmm.
most people would have their apartment keys or other keys
Yeah.
or something on there, and it was just one single key. And then it was bent in a direction to where she would have had to be using her non-dominant left hand,
Hmm.
and so that was something we
The
kind of looked
the
into that was
Miata,
weird.
what is that?
A Miata, it's like a red. I don't even know if you call it a sports car, a sports
Okay,
car, a little
is
car.
that whose car is that though?
So that's the debatable part. So
Is
uh,
that the same one that's out in the parking lot?
it's one. It's yeah. It was
Okay.
in the parking lot,
Okay.
and so you know they did a lot of. I noticed there was a lot of omitting of specific names related to the Miata, and obviously I don't know if I would share it on here because they're so sue happy about people
But still,
saying
how
their
is it
name, but
debatable if it's public record who owns a vehicle?
right.
So who owns
So
that
the
vehicle?
actual, to
Owner.
me, because there was no bill of sale, there
Okay.
was no money transferred.
Okay.
It was just a verbal, hey, she was buying this vehicle from me, and so what ended up happening, it still had the prior owner's plates on it too. So I
Okay.
mean, you
But
have all these
okay, so that's the
things.
car she was driving
So that's
around.
the car
If she went to
she was
work, that was the
driving.
kind of car she drove. Okay.
So then
So
according,
that's not debatable.
what's that? Oh, if she was the car for,
That was her get around car.
it was for that time, it was technically hers, but there technically was a vehicle that I feel was kind of a dark horse there.
You think
Was her prior vehicle
you think she had two
to that.
cars?
So I think she fully owned one vehicle,
Okay.
and then there was the other vehicle. From reports that we're finding, is it either was borrowed,
Okay.
or if it was going to be a sale, nothing was fully gone, to the end on there, and so that creates the suspicion behind the Miata itself. And then even in my investigation of finding, you know why are they, they always tried to focus on certain things to divert attention.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find all the different things. What do they stress so hard? And the Miata was one of those that they stressed quite hard publicly.
What I don't understand is, one, if her car was in the parking lot,
Mhm.
what were you doing talking about being on top of a car in a
Yeah.
pit? What's that car? What do you think?
So one of the things I
Because
dug on.
there's a bunch of cars in lakes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah.
you know.
Well, and they ended up even tracking down the Miata. It's still owned by someone in Wisconsin and
Okay.
stuff like that. Um, but like, to me, looking at it, they had, and that's another argument someone had is, well, a local car salesperson says that they had lined up that sale, which, there's a lot of details I can't share behind the car salesman and stuff like that too. But what that basically was the was showing to me that this wasn't bought through a dealership.
Mhm.
If she was buying it, this is a private sale.
Right.
So what did she do with her other vehicle if this was a private sale?
Yeah.
And so that's what made me look into what was her other prior vehicle then. And so I dug around, and the only thing I could find was a picture of her with her prior vehicle that Find Jodi actually had when I scanned way back on their because their posts from Facebook go way
How
back.
old is she at the time?
Man,
So like 21, 22?
it was in her 20s. I know. I can't remember specifics offhand on that one, but but she had a picture of her with a friend, and it was with her Honda.
Mhm.
She had a white Honda CRX two
Okay.
door,
Yeah.
and she had nicknamed it her Precious.
Yeah.
A little tiny little car. Like, I think I had a friend
You
growing
think
up that
that's
had
you think
one.
that's verifiable? Like that's
It's so, like,
like
with
she
that
had a
picture and
different.
stuff, that is definitely. So it said she had owned that car, I think, since '87.
And she
And
called it her
so
precious.
she
What she
called
called
it
it?
her Precious.
Really?
Is her, and like Hondas are, those kind of
Yeah.
cars, they're actually, they'll go forever.
Okay.
You get hundreds of thousands of miles on there.
But
And
even
then,
then, that one
but
wasn't in her name, or it was in her name.
that one, they can't. I can't get law enforcement to give me any type of.
You don't need law enforcement if it's public record on a
Well,
vehicle,
that's
do you?
so. One of the things is we couldn't find a plate on any pictures,
Oh, I
and
see.
so
Okay.
like if I found a plate, I might be able to find a VIN or
No,
or
but her
something.
with
But
her name, you should be able to look all
yeah.
the vehicles that were legally under her name,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That's
You'd be surprised. A lot of vehicles that are older like that, you almost need to have a DOT, excuse me, like a DOT, um, something with the DOT, like a dealer's license or something, to be able to look at older, unless you have the exact VIN number,
okay.
because like if you look up, so there was certain people that I looked up their license plate number that I had from citations,
Okay.
and I'm like, let's find out if we can get a VIN number for that to see if that vehicle was dumped
Uh-huh.
somewhere, so we can confirm that that's it. And it will just say there's no records. The records are
Huh.
too old to show anything. And I actually had dealer friends that were car dealers be
Uh-huh.
like, hey, if you can find the stuff, I'll look it up and I'll see if I can find that information. So I went by, a lot of people close to her, and that picture showing obviously that she
Hmm.
had owned that car, and find Jodi had actually looked into that car early on,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then just got to a stop point where they're like, it kind of just disappears. It doesn't say that she sold it. It doesn't say that she traded it in. They were able to look and find the Miata
Okay.
and even trace that to Wisconsin. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if they could do that, they should be able to do the same thing for
So
this
that's
Honda.
a missing car right now.
And so yeah, like one of the things that that I had also
So we have three
Mhm,
vehicles
mhm.
potentially. We have
Or, oh
well
yeah, oh
no,
yeah, for the kid, yeah,
we have a white van.
yep, white
Okay.
van,
And then a Miata, which has
yep,
been recovered, everybody knows about, and her one of her previous cars
yeah.
that she may have been using at the same time.
Yeah, it was a car that I know she was having troubles with, because she talked about it in letters to friends, where I think she missed a wedding because she's like, hey, I'm having car troubles.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I later kind of found in there that I thought was suspicious is, why do they keep trying to cast that Honda aside in things that they do? Like, there's no mention of it in any of the investigations with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just completely just to the side.
Okay.
And then the fact that the Miata was stressed so much, and then and then they're just like little red flags for me. But
When you're standing on top of that car, what in your mind is thinking? What car could this be? You think it could be
yeah,
the Miata,
so
or no,
so
no, not the
when
Miata.
we so
The,
when we yeah no so when we were actually going out to that specific pond, so we
Mhm.
went to the pits, and people confuse that because we thought we had found a car in the Highland pits, because we were guided that area for someone saying there's evidence of some sort out there, but that's kind of what they left us cliffhanging at.
Yeah.
And that's when we thought we saw a car in there,
Okay.
and that's what actually spiked me to look into her Honda and everything.
Yeah.
And then we got to this pond, and the pond one was someone really high up in a particular drug ring, that we had uncovered or whatever.
You mentioned that on your Facebook post. You want to say that on the podcast? The name?
I am I mean,
You already went public with it on
yeah, you
Facebook.
know
You
what I
know.
did, I got pretty mad. So like after the pond thing, I was kind of taking it in a way as a bribe, because the call that and the person, I've gotten some people telling me about, or they came forward to tell me about this pond, but it was one of those where they called, and then it's just kind of like, what's your whole goal with this
Yeah.
investigation? Because it seems like you're getting too deep. And ironically, I got that call after posting some things about a machine shed and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so it seemed to trigger somebody, but they immediately turned around and were just like, so what are you after? And I was like, I know that there's some sort of drug ring,
Was that an anonymous
corruption.
person, or you know who
I
called
know,
you?
I know,
Okay.
yeah,
And you don't
yeah,
want to say their
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Okay.
And so they and I don't think they knew I knew who they were.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that, and so
They were trying to. They didn't introduce
yeah,
themselves. They just
no,
called you.
they messaged me with call me now, whatever, and as soon as I
So
see
they
the
went
name,
through
I'm
like
just
a.
like,
Okay.
oh boy,
Yeah.
and there was someone who I wanted, there's people I've wanted to talk to, and actually that's another thing on my investigation. I'm not aggressively coming at people for information.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just leaving the porch light on and just like, hey, I'm not gonna. I have not aggressively gone at a specific targeted person and been like, hey, I want you to give me information. What can you give me?
Yeah.
I'm approaching this as I'm throwing information out. If you want to give me information, you tell me what you're comfortable with telling me and that kind of stuff. And that approach has I mean, literally, I've had hundreds, almost thousands of people come forward to me and just tell. Like they always say on this
Yeah.
case, why isn't anyone talking?
Mhm.
And then it's like people are talking,
Yeah.
people aren't listening,
Yeah.
and then there's some people that are in their situation can't talk unless it's a certain person like myself able to listen. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it being so long ago, a lot of people have just you're not going to find out why. Quit worrying about it. Let's move
yeah,
on. Let's get.
I've heard that.
We
Yeah,
got.
and I've heard
And
that.
when I talk to people about it, that's you know, and that's even kind of my thought to it, not knowing anything about it. I'm interested in it because you're so interested in
Yeah,
it. But if you weren't so interested in it, I wouldn't really care. It's
yeah.
30. I moved
Oh,
into Mason maybe 10 years ago, and I heard about this, but that's where
yeah.
I'm okay to just leave it at that.
Right.
But I think what you're doing now, and I don't know how public. I don't understand that you're upset and angry and everything,
Hmm.
but when you get into the weeds, like there's corruption involved. There's somebody knows they're blocking it.
Hmm.
There's threats going on. That's some pretty serious. That's no longer a old.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't.
it brings
It
it real
matters. It
current pretty
matters. It
fast. Yeah.
matters now, and it does
Hmm.
matter. So that's what I'm trying to ask. Like, do you think that this is whatever was going on back then? To it's still going on today? But
Right.
so what I was trying to ask is, do you
Yeah, yeah,
think
yeah.
that?
Because like some of it, I kind of jumped ahead. I
Yeah,
don't mean to
yeah.
jump ahead because that'll
Uh,
confuse people who don't know as much,
so I'm just gonna
on
ask it
certain
clearly. You
things.
think that she was in? Is that a rumor that she was investigating some type of police
Uh,
corruption or
so
police syndicate
what I
crime?
will bluntly say on here is just she had a good, she liked to party, and she had, everyone likes to kind of,
Mm,
socialize and all that, but you know she had found an extreme amount of information that tied law enforcement and particular drug organizations working together, and some of it
local law enforcement here in Mason.
like local law enforcement, but it starts to kind of the more I dug into it, the more it started to kind of branch out to like other counties, other
Okay.
whatever things, and so it it got pretty extreme, and like I didn't believe it at first, and then it was just like coming across certain information kept kept you know
So if that were true,
right.
and um, she's going to sit on that information and just tell who she tells, but not put it on the news, or she's trying to find a way to put it on the news and go public with that. Do you have any feeling that she was trying to do one or the other, just sit on it and be a person, or that she was actually trying to make a case and may have some type of.
In my personal opinion, I'll
Yeah,
leave it at that
yeah,
at this point. Is I believe that she might have gotten some information from a friend of hers, Billy Prune, who he has a very you know, very questionable
yeah.
death that happened a month before hers,
Hmm.
and so that alone is something that's been heavily investigated. But there's still some pretty dicey corruption going on that, and so she witnessed, and knew about some of that, and then through her social ring discovered a lot of other things, and I can 100% say that that is what caused
Okay,
her to become a target.
okay. So with her being young, um, in her young 20s, and having this information, is there anybody, one of her friends or a family, somebody that has come out and said she was talking about this, that she was in trouble, or that she had come up with something on law enforcement, or is there any close eyewitnesses, close witnesses
Yeah.
to her that says, yeah, she was been talking
The,
about this, and
there's a lot of people that actually do know,
mhm.
but the problem is the threat to their lives still exists today.
Yeah.
And so that's why they have to dance around facts or dance around things for their own safety.
Have you spoke with any of those people?
uh, I have spoke with people through the many messages and stuff that I've gotten, but the other one is I've worked with other investigators because there's been so many private
And
investigators
I
on
say,
this.
have you spoke? This isn't, again, this isn't your full.
Yep.
This isn't your job.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You're a cell
Yep,
phone
yeah,
guy. So
yep.
it might be too much to, I'm asking you all these, but like, I understand that you're not going to have all these things. It is
Yeah.
fascinating how much you, like you said, how much you have been able to come across,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it's like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
he's been able to do this much. One, is it reliable, or are you
Yeah.
just kind of living
Right.
in Alice's,
Yeah,
or,
yeah, yeah.
or
That's it
yeah,
because that's I have some haters where they're just like, oh, this guy's just making stuff up or talking
yeah,
for views or whatever else, and I'm like, man, I don't care for I don't care to be viral on anything. Like in
mhm,
fact, right now it's hard running a business, and I have
yeah,
7 kids at
yeah,
home, and so I have one that's graduating this year, my oldest, and then my youngest is 1,
yeah.
and so I am slammed with kids stuff. The shop. I play in a band out of Des Moines, so I go to Des Moines every week
What's
for
that
that.
band called?
My band's called Switchblade Saturdays. So
Okay. Is that so? I looked into a little bit. You were in another band called Senseless Beauty,
yep,
and that was a very popular
and that
band.
also
Yeah,
helps with the tie of the area
yeah,
because people grew up and they went to our shows.
yeah.
I was in that band for almost 10 years,
Okay.
spanned from like 2005 to 2014, I believe, was
Yeah.
our final show.
Is that I tried to listen to it a couple days ago, and is that considered screamo? Is that
It's heavy, yeah, it's
is
heavy
that is that
stuff. It's
is
probably metalcore, I guess, is the
metalcore?
best way they call
Is
it.
screamo, is that like derogatory? Like nobody would say
I don't know.
screamo?
I mean, it works. There is we're used to all sorts of sub names and whatever for it, but that band that I was in then, we were actually a Christian metalcore band,
That was
and people never
Senseless Beauty.
Senseless Beauty, and
Yeah,
so that people never associated like, oh, Christian music and metal music and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But our goal was basically just to kind of show
Was that
people.
a new genre that came out, or has it been around
It was
for?
pretty big in like it started out late 90s, early
Oh, okay,
2000s, and
okay,
it's just like music kept getting heavier and people trying to find ways to get heavier and heavier, and then it just like it stuck for a good while or
yeah.
whatever, and it became like popular where everyone wanted to be in bands in high school,
Mhm.
and just that's where the scene looks went with the little swooshes
Yeah.
and
So
girls with crazy hair and
yeah.
makeup and
So
stuff.
what's the word that you used for to describe
Metalcore is what I use.
metalcore?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when you hear a band in metalcore and they're singing like the Senseless Beauty,
Mhm.
when I was it starts out with words that are inaudible. Are those
Mhm.
actual words, or are those just
There
sound?
is words, and like that's the tough side is like it is a niche listening group. You get people that can process music really well to where like they chant those words, they can sing word for word
Uh-huh.
and that kind of stuff. And then you get some people where they're like, bro, I can't understand this. It just sounds like you're yelling at a mic.
So you think I shouldn't say you think, but if you're listening to another metalcore
Mhm,
band and they're having those wild vocals that nobody understands, it just sounds like screaming,
mhm.
you would be able to understand what they were saying, or there's no way to understand.
Yeah, no,
Really?
you can decipher a lot of that, and that it sometimes causes people to look up the lyrics on
Right.
certain
That's how I
things.
would have to do
You
it. But
you
even
try,
afterwards, there was still no like that.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
just
yeah, and like we had like some singing with it and all that, but then a lot of it gets into the music side behind even just the screaming and singing
Mhm.
is the technicality of the music. And you're going to find that people that actually listen, at the most technical people that listen to metalcore and some of the craziest stuff, they listen to like orchestras and
Really?
and symphony stuff
Okay.
because they can process in their mind like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, they got this, under melody coming underneath this,
Really?
and
Yeah.
this instrument's playing this at this timing, and it's like my old drummer, he can nerd out on that. He loves
Yeah.
the Lord of the Rings, loves all these, like the soundtrack of Lord of the Rings. He'll go and like to the concert to watch that, and then he'll go listen to super super heavy bands and stuff.
Speaking of which, I got you a couple of gifts here.
Oh, dude.
This is Fugler. Oh, I dropped my arm.
Oh,
there.
nice.
I saw this in Walmart the other day.
Dude.
So yeah,
Real dude.
Yep,
Oh, that's awesome.
I just want to thank you
Oh,
for
heck
coming
yeah.
on the show.
Oh, dude, that is awesome.
You're the
You
first
didn't have to do
guest.
that. That's
Yep.
awesome.
And then there's also a hat behind you right there.
Oh, heck yeah.
Attack on Titan.
Dude.
Do you ever do any anime or anything like that?
A little bit on there, and with my kids too and everything too.
I saw your profile and I made a few assumptions. I just
dude, no. Hats in general,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, okay.
That's kind of like my thing. That's why, like when I made my logo for Flip Investigates, like it made this. It generated. I used kind of a generation thing and had it edited. And the guy's like, "Does this look good?" And I was like, "It's too cliche with the hat." I'm like, "You got to give me the hat like a hat I'd wear."
Yeah.
And so it was just a backwards hat with kind of an investigator or whatever. And
Yeah.
so like hats are kind of my thing, and mostly because well, one of two things. I think because I'm 6'4", tattoos and whatever, I get mistaken for this artist called MGK or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so
I totally
if I have my hair out like whatever,
funny.
Regular, everyone's always like,
Eminem's not too happy with you.
Yeah. And so people give me that a lot, but then the other one is I'm so go that like it's sometimes the easiest thing to do is just grab a hat and go,
Right.
and so that's kind of the thing behind the hats and everything, but yeah,
I don't like to wear hats. They give me like a weird hat hair, like because I don't like to wear them all the time. One of the things that I was thinking like is wearing headphones on this show, but it's like if it's a more than an hour, I wouldn't want to wear a head. It would just squish my ears to
right.
So the same way, like I like hats, but I don't want them on all day. It's too weird, or then especially in the wind, they blow off, and I gotta walk around like this. So every once in a while, my hair will grow too long.
Yeah,
it's like I can't comb this, and I don't want to get a haircut, so I'll just buy a hat and wear that until I get my next haircut, and then when I get my haircut, I stop wearing the hat. So
that's what I do, because it's like, regardless, my hair is always like usually a messed up style. It still has to be styled, and it still takes time to do. So it's like, or if it's windy out or whatever, I'll just look homeless or something, and so I'll just throw a hat on or whatever.
So you got like a wall of hats at home or something?
Dude, I have, in my closet, I've got like my hats, and then I've got like this autograph wall in my closet. So I have my Dog the Bounty Hunter stuff, and then all these other celebrity people or bands I've played with that are huge that have signed things and that kind of stuff. And so
So with Senseless Beauty, did you guys tour a lot?
We did tour some.
That was the biggest band, right? That was
yeah, I mean, like Switchblade right now, I actually tried to retire from music, and Switchblade pulled me in because like how I could design lights and nerd out on production, and then obviously how I write and stuff like that. But
so I didn't know you were. I didn't know about Switchblade. I saw the poster the other day, and I saw Switchblade, but I didn't know. I was like, is that the band that he's talking about that he's in? So Switchblade. How long have they been going?
They've actually been going for a long time. I want to say it's like 18 years or something. Like it evolved from other different bands and stuff, but I got into it in 2017, and I had no idea what I was getting into, because it was like they were already pretty established to where like the second show in was a sold out show at Valor Ballroom with Falling in Reverse, All That Remains, a couple other big bands, and it was just a couple thousand people. And I'm sitting here fresh out of like, all right, I haven't played a show in 2 years or whatever.
What do you do in the
so I play guitar and sing, and then obviously like my capabilities of programming lights to the music and creating the backtracks and kind of creating the atmosphere of the production. And so that's the stuff that I do, and programming that takes a long time. So try to do that on top of everything that I'm doing was, like we just played with the guys from Mushroom Head a couple days ago, and that I had to sit there and try and learn a new song
Hmm.
while I'm taking 400 messages and
Yeah.
just having my, like
Yeah.
being in shock with every message I'm opening and then trying to keep up with responding and then getting my employees hitting me
Yeah.
up with, hey,
That
how do you
was
fix this? How do we, whatever this?
yeah, that
Like,
was one thing that was really interesting when I first was introduced to you on Facebook about your Flip Investigates. I was like, okay, he's the investigator in the Jodi. Oh wait, he's also the owner of iOS. Oh wait, he's also in a band. Oh
yeah,
wait, he's also a big family guy. And
yeah.
it's like, do you ever feel like you get like too spread too thin out?
Yeah.
Like it's too much. You got to
I,
drop something.
I say sometimes to my guys where I'm like, there's sometimes a perfect storm of when the stars line up and things are crossing each other. And in my mind, I'm so driven to where I'm like, I'm going to do this. I've had one where it was like, I had a daughter's track meet that I had to be at, but then I had to go from the track meet over to, a show,
Yeah.
play the show, and then I had something else in another town or whatever the next day, and so I was like, I could either sleep at the practice space on a
Yeah.
couch
Yeah. Yeah.
or and then dart in the morning or just drive there and sleep in the car or whatever.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I get in over my head and some people kind of get on me about it, but it's just I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I just like to like I mean I like to stay busy, but sometimes it gets overwhelming. And with this case thing, I will say, like especially recently, and then having to go like locally viral with like people resharing
Hmm.
stuff and blowing stuff up on there. It's I think it was the first time where like at that Mushroom Head show, I just had a migraine the whole time. I'm like, I
Okay.
don't get headaches or migraines, but
Mm.
I'm like, I am so stressed out
Yeah.
that like and so I had to play the show with just and play even some of these new songs and all that and like try and power through it. And then they're just like, I'd get a call of someone's like, hey, I want to meet you for coffee tomorrow morning
Yeah.
at whatever. Well, the show just got done at 1 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
at Des Moines. And so then it's like, all right, I'm just going to keep cruising coffee. Like I actually am not a coffee person, never have
Yeah.
been, but I've become accustomed to it
Hmm.
because of the caffeine
Yeah.
and trying to stay awake and stuff. And so it works, but I'm getting older too, and so my body sometimes like takes a day or two to say I'm angry at you, like
Yeah.
and I still have to coast. Like I took some information, even last night on a call,
Mhm.
and I was just straight with the guy. I'm like, man, I am so mentally burnt out that
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the right questions to ask
Yeah.
because I'm like I'm trying to keep myself awake to talk to all these people and
You think this case is going to get solved?
I'm I'm a very driven person, and all my friends kind of like
Yeah.
they'll send me messages and they're like, "You're on this, and I know you're going to be the guy to
Yeah.
do it because you finish everything you do." Even my
Yeah.
wife, like they ask
Yeah.
her, and she's like, "I let him do his thing. When
Yeah.
he is set on something, he is going to see that all the way through."
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of I have to, and that's one of the things that I'm mostly driven by, and I haven't said that as much on here, is just the closure for Jodi's family, the
Hmm.
closure for the community to put to bed certain rumors, certain theories, but then to show them certain things that need to be we need to put an end to, and we've had a blind eye to for all these years.
You're talking about like having a corrupt.
Yeah, with some of the corruption, because like some of it, it's like, okay, this many years ago it's probably dwindled down, and then
Mhm.
it's like, oh no, they just teamed up with different organizations as they get busted over the years, and it just
Yeah. I mean, it may be so. I mean, there's only on.
it's not. I mean, if I say I was investigating this 20 years ago,
Mhm.
not a chance. I would have tapped out. I would
Okay.
have been like, I would have
Yeah.
got to a certain point, and the
You think
danger
it was? You
level,
think it was worse back
it was
then?
far worse
Okay.
back then. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many death cover-ups that I'm getting messaged about that it's so extreme that I mean, and then there's people giving me cries for help where they're like, "This happened back in the day.
Mm.
They didn't even put a missing persons thing out for this," or someone coming up with, I guess apparently there was a scrap car yard where they used to team with some organization that would crush people in cars and send the metal off to be
Yeah.
melted. And
Yeah.
now and it was someone coming forward about their family being in charge of it, or like just crazy stuff to where like this is in movies. Like
Yeah.
like what is this a plot of a and even like when I reported, I did make some federal reports to some people because the information got so extreme that I'm like, we need something to come into town and
Has there
check this
been
out.
federal agencies to investigate this?
I think there's some, but the hard part is it's like a chess match. They've got certain people in certain different areas
Mhm.
that can help cover things. So like one of the things that I kind of posted on one of my videos was Jodi's diary,
Mhm.
and on her diary, one of the things I noticed, because I pay attention to the detail, but I'm also a tech
How do you
guy,
get the diary?
is so the diary it was when they posted it in the
Okay.
newspaper,
Okay.
and so there was just all these odd things. So there's one case that I'm trying to solve is a man named Gerald Best.
Hmm.
And from what I'm told is he had a copy or the copy of the diary with the actual things in it of Jodi talking about the corruption with the police.
Okay.
Suddenly in 1999, he has a cold case. He's murdered.
He's gone.
Nothing. Yeah,
Okay.
nothing is solved,
Hmm.
and it's still not solved to this day. And so that got me going. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, a police officer's wife sends it to the Globe Gazette, and they publish some of it.
Hmm.
And so I looked at that, and I was like, okay, so they published some of the actual journals, picture
Yeah.
in the paper.
Hmm.
And so I took those pictures that the paper published,
Yeah.
and I zoomed in on it, and I was like, wait a second here, this is what my old school teachers used to do when they tried to create, because they didn't have Photoshop. There was
I know what
Photoshop,
you're
but it's
talking
like,
about. Yeah.
where they take clippings of
Yeah.
things and tape it on a paper, and then they put it on a scanner
Yeah.
or printer, and
Yeah.
do that to kind of create their creations. And when you zoom in, you could see the blurred lines around her signature, blurred lines around different things, and then when you compare the notebook widths
Yeah.
of the lines, they don't match up, and you can clearly see a white card that's in front of a notepad or whatever. And I
It
was
was.
like,
It was
no
just.
one's ever
Yeah.
zoomed in and looked at this.
It was just
Like
one page that they published,
they
though.
only published a couple, pages like that. But then it got me to think, when the Fed, when like the FBI and DCI
Nobody
came
knows where
in.
that book is right now.
Well, so I want to know. I mean, it's supposedly in the main ones in Mason City evidence.
Okay.
However, when the feds and DCI came in to investigate the corruption a little bit, they were given the diaries for
Hmm.
their own investigations,
Yeah.
but they were giving the modified diary that the Globe had or whatever that they had put, and so they were given copies. They were never given the actual physical real
So you think somebody
diary.
took the diary, made a copy of it?
Yes, and edited some things in it, and that's where the
Hmm.
Miata part comes in. About, I bought a Miata, I bought whatever, and it's like, was that her writing that?
No.
Was that, are they trying to help orchestrate and paint something?
So what's that in the paper or in online? Wasn't there something online that said that they found her car or something?
Okay, so that one's going to get crazy too, coming up in the next few days. So that one is probably going to be one of the biggest hands down evidences against corruption against the police when I can come out with the things that I've got brewing.
Okay.
And so what they did is Steve Ridge made a really good push. He's a private investigator that's been working on a lot of things. He made a big push to get that revealed,
Mhm.
because in Iowa we have laws that allow law enforcement not to share certain evidence of crime, where you can go to other states and file for checking out evidence that they have on certain things.
So
And
it's
in
different for every
Iowa,
state.
yeah, and for
Iowa,
some
so-
reason in Iowa they have it to where they can hide that stuff from the
Okay.
public and claim that it's part of an investigation.
Okay.
And so somehow he got them to show John Van Cise's GPS records that they pulled. Now, the area that seems suspicious,
John Beside.
John Van Cise has been one of the suspects of interest, persons of interest in
Okay.
taking Jodi since
Is he just
the beginning.
a career criminal? Who is he?
He's a guy that he was divorced from Newton, Iowa, and came up here and
Saw an opportunity to abduct somebody and
well, it's what they're there's things painted,
Okay.
but it's he had probably some form of involvement, I think, for sure too, in getting Jodi some information that she had.
Okay.
And so um but yeah, there's a lot of stuff about a relationship with him and her. There's a lot of stuff, on the background of it, but so he was a main person of interest, and I don't know what organization pulled this, if it was like a federal or DCI or somebody went after his GPS records in 2017 to see where did he visit when he came back up here from Arizona, because he ran to Arizona
Okay.
after everything. But
Why would so she gets abducted, and he takes off to Arizona because he's a
well, yeah,
suspect?
yeah. I mean, because in this area, regardless if he actually, and everyone's innocent until proven guilty in a
Yeah.
court of law, as
Yeah.
you say,
Yeah.
it's legally to say that. But if since his reputation was pretty destroyed here or
He
whatever,
didn't
I
want
can't
he didn't want
imagine
to be a part
anyone
of it, so he
wanting to
just
be
leaves.
around. Yeah, even if he didn't do it or whatever, there's you're pretty ruined on that. And so he went down to Arizona. It was just weird to me how certain, like, his alibi went to Arizona as well. And there was like little bits of stuff like that that made me perk up, like, wait a second, there's something weird here. Like, but and then people keeping themselves involved over the years that, that weren't big main characters, and that stuff started to give me red flags, and just all these different things. But yeah, so he was a main person of interest. So when he came up here, he got indicted to a federal grand jury in Cedar Rapids, I think.
Okay.
And when he came up here, he apparently visited our area, and those records show on his car where he's visited and what places he went. However, they're claiming that, and they blocked off the portion of GPS records that shows where he stopped here.
Mm-hmm.
And their excuse is, oh, this could make something, make it could cause something in the case to ruin the case and ruin the investigation, is kind of what they're pushing at. Now, one of the things I might say here is, and hopefully is I came across a certain person that had a leaked version of the full version.
Okay.
And so um, they had found where he had went, around here.
Yeah.
And with some of the information that I've gotten from last night and this morning, you know, it matches. And if this all pans out the way that I have panning out, this one evidence is almost a travesty to our area, and it will show 100% corruption of a cover-up.
Are you leading us on?
I'll lead you on a little bit. I'll give you some stuff, but
I feel that way a little bit with some of the stuff you post.
Yeah,
and there's a part two coming up.
Yeah.
Like
We'll definitely have to have a
part
part two, because and I'll have that. And I mean, I'm trying to process how to, like, with the new information that I've got, because I mean, I've got a ton of information on corruption stuff, and that goes super deep. I don't know how deep I want to deal with that, because a lot of people don't live to tell the tale when you go a certain length. So it's and the organizations involved are extremely dangerous, and extremely dangerous to this day.
There's a lot of truth to that. I mean,
yeah,
you're gonna have evil people out there, and
I mean, I to be honest, I've gotten names of hitmen that have been used, and that, and what's scary is you have someone say some names, but then I'm getting messages from other people that don't even know this other person naming the same hitman, and I'm just like, like there's something here, so I've got to watch for this guy and this guy during my search or whatever, and like, but like it it's gonna open your eyes. I mean, like, even with my report to trying to get this investigated in our area for corruption, the guy's exact words were just like, what you're telling me may be one of the biggest governmental corruption things we have seen in modern history. And I was like, for him to word it like that, I was like, I mean, I know there's other wild stuff going on that's up there, but this is that major. And
well, Mason City, I mean, when I was talking about rumors earlier, it's called Mason City because of the Masonites, because of the if you heard,
Yep.
yeah, and that underground operation, or and then it's also called Little Chicago. It's also called
It's
what's Chicago is the Windy City because of how long-winded the politicians are, not because of the actual wind.
yeah,
It's because and we got plenty of wind here. We got plenty of so
right,
what are all the ties from this little tiny dinky town
right.
to Chicago to the
Well,
other
it's
to the
and
other
that's what's
bigger
wild.
cities.
It's
Yeah,
like Chicago, Detroit,
yeah,
all these different big rings, but they look at our area because we're a small town and people will bat a blind eye to certain things,
hmm
as we've seen, because we hear a rumor and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm going back to work. I
yeah,
don't, whatever. And that's one of the things that I see. And like one of the things that's always bugged me is even since high school, I hate bullies.
hmm
I would see someone getting bullied and I would defend whoever and be like, stop giving this person crap,
yeah,
stop giving, whatever. And this is one of the biggest forms of bullying that I've seen, where these dudes they have no care for human life. They're all about greed, addiction, and whatever else. And so like these monsters, as I basically call them, it's something that we just don't want in our community. It ruined my innocence on the idea of this
yeah,
community. I actually was depressed for like probably like a week of
yeah,
just extreme depression, because I was like, I can't believe some of the names that I've found, some of the people in this that you wouldn't have never believed, like even business owners, where it's like, I'm an entrepreneur, I looked up to these people because
yeah,
they grew their businesses to where they are,
yeah,
but their businesses truly didn't get there because of hard work, and like the rest of us have
yeah,
built, it's gotten there from disgusting other things.
yeah.
And so it's hard to see, and like it's hard to process, especially being from here for so long. And then it's also hard from a standpoint of like, this is kind of stuff that you see in a movie plot. Like, how
Yeah.
is this Mason
Yeah.
City, Iowa, the middle of
Right.
nowhere?
Yeah.
But I mean, like even one of the things that I've had is, with my shop, for instance, when we were a franchise, I remember telling people about some of the things we've run into here, like even with the gun story
hmm
and stuff like that. And I had someone from Detroit in one of the scariest neighborhoods that had a franchise there say, why is it that wherever you're from is scarier than where I'm from?
Yeah.
And everyone just started laughing. We're
Yeah.
like, how's that? Like guys in the middle of like Detroit,
Yeah.
with the stuff they see. How
Yeah.
are we more severe than
Yeah.
that? Like,
So that's one viewpoint.
yeah.
I'm on. I'm going to lift up Mason City a little
Hmm.
bit.
Hmm.
Uh, I as far as that goes, maybe
And,
maybe, but I don't want to throw anybody
no,
on the
no,
bus
no, yeah,
because
yeah.
I do what I'm seeing above the ground as I drive around Mason City. I see a bright future. I see a
Hmm.
positive future. I see things are being built. I've asked questions about what's going on here, what's going on there, as far as construction's going on,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
plans and landscape. And I see the city being, it's called a city. It's really like a smaller town or a larger town, but there's so many cool things. That have you seen those bike tracks
Oh
go?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's so awesome.
See, yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the stuff, and like, I don't mean to bring a dark shadow on there,
yeah,
because that's also why I believe they don't want a Jodi Huisentruit date, because they know when
it could be
everything's
sure.
whatever, it's going to
Yeah,
cast like a national dark shadow
yeah,
on here. But through all this, and that's what got me out of my depression, is seeing the amount of people coming together, because it's not just I'm just one guy doing something, but
hmm
our community is coming out. Like those 400 messages that I got
yeah,
are people that care,
yeah,
and they want to help in some way by supporting and helping get this town cleaned up
yeah,
and get it to be what it's meant to be.
mhm,
And that gave me a hope that, like, there is there is no giving up on this town. There is an actual hope here that
mhm,
we could clean things up, and there are good people here.
yeah,
And I also want to clarify, because someone put that in the comments, were like, you're saying that all law enforcement is evil, all
right,
law enforcement. There
right,
is not. There is amazing people. Like one
mhm,
of the people that I'll definitely give credits to on here, Kevin Pals,
mhm,
awesome,
yeah,
100% gets my endorsement as one of the like best law enforcement, hands down, that
yeah.
anyone could
I
ever
know
have.
Kevin. Yep.
And looking into the different names and people I have, he stood through having to be surrounded by some people that were not so great, and was able to somehow do the great job he did.
For those of you guys who don't know, Kevin Pals is the former sheriff of the county here in Cerro Gordo, and I know him personally. He's a great guy. Did he didn't run in this last sheriff, so we have a new sheriff. I don't know. Haven't met him.
Yeah.
But what Philip was talking about, he's just giving praises to our old sheriff Kevin, and I would second that also. Knowing him, I can only stand to his personality, who he is as a person. I don't do too much with law enforcement. I'm not in trouble, so I don't know too much about that. But as a person, I'll definitely stand by him and give strong testimony to his character.
And that's the thing that like I wanted to point out, because like I had pointed at one point, it was 30 past and current, people, whether they're in Mason City Police, DCI, and any of that. There are the corrupt ones, there are good ones, and then there's ones that just they're caught in the middle. They're stuck. Like I witnessed, and this is a scary one, is witnessing, someone trying to, kind of come clean with some different stuff, and then being told you need to be silent. You'll lose your job.
What's very interesting about what you're saying is this is 100% true. So we're not going to get into hearsay or rumors. I'm gonna get into some real stuff right now, and I do want to have another show on this. It's sex trafficking. So sex trafficking right now it's not what you think it is. Sex trafficking right now is that you have a daughter you were talking about. You have 7 kids. One of them could be sex trafficked right now. You wouldn't know it.
Right.
If you go to a hospital and one of the nurses who take your blood, she could be sex trafficked. Nobody would know about it.
Yep.
What they do is they scam these people into a one-night event somehow, and then they have footage over that, and then they use that as leverage to have another interaction. So this is it, and then it goes on and on and on, and that is a real issue in Mason City and throughout the United States, but it's here in Mason City. It's in our backyards. That's not it's everywhere, and that's a real thing. So to say that these things aren't happening, that's very irresponsible. These things are happening. To what level, to who's involved, it sucks because we don't know. You think somebody's doing such a nice thing, or they have that high reputation, and then you find out about this. And then also, what also sucks is because you don't know if somebody's being falsely accused.
Right.
And
there's some of that in some of the things where if they don't do something that, then someone will falsely accuse.
So I can see an officer being young. These are kids. A lot of these officers are kids. They're 18, 19 years old when they first come to the force. They don't know any better. They follow what they're being told. And I'm not saying this is what happened in Mason City. I'm saying this is, you see it in movies a lot. And I would imagine it's happened actually somewhere, and so that they follow course, and now they've participated in that illegal event, and now they have that over that person. Hey, if you want to have a family, if you want to be out of jail, you better stick with us. Otherwise, we're going to release this information on you, and you'll be in jail for the rest of your life. And it's like,
and that's the position that some have been put in. And that's where I say they're not. When I say like not everyone's corrupt, there's some that are just put in a really crappy position. And I've actually called it out once where I said to one investigator, where I was like, hey, I'm not going to give you this information because you're going to get hell for it. They're going to threaten your job. They're going to just, make it miserable, where you're going to want to take your family and leave. And so I know you're a good person, but I know that you're also dealing with some of the things that's really hard around you, that's kind of forcing you in certain ways. And so that that is excuse me happening. And so yeah, I mean, I don't want people to just fear that like all officers are bad, all whatever on all that. There's just some shady things with certain characters, and I mean, that's
how it is. Well, That's about as much as time as I got.
Yeah.
I thank you for coming
Yeah.
out here and talking to us and being our first guest. And hopefully we can get some closure to this as a city, as a community, and the family members involved. Definitely.
Yeah.
Pray for safety all over you.
Yeah. I
and,
accept that. I accept any of that. Yeah.
and just thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me,
Yeah.
and thanks for this.
No
And
problem.
I'll be out for sure too.
I want
so
you. I want you
hopefully-
back on the show.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully
Yeah.
the next
Definitely.
time.
I would-